My name is Jacob Hensley, a retired mechanic, living alone on a small farm nestled in the misty Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. This place, with its thick fog and the wind howling through the pines, used to be my and Ellen's paradise. But after the accident 5 years ago, it became a prison of loneliness. Ellen's gone, my kids moved away, leaving only Smokey, my old cat, as my sole companion. This old wooden house, though too big, I can't bring myself to sell, because every corner holds memories of Ellen. I enjoy my late-night walks, the damp chill and the wind's eerie howl through the pines bring me a sense of peace. One autumn night, with the fog rolling in thick, I took Smokey for a walk around the property. I've walked this path hundreds of times, but as I headed back to the house, a strange feeling stopped me. I glanced up at the old bedroom window on the second floor, the room Ellen and I shared, and saw a faint figure standing there, motionless behind the misty glass. My heart tightened. That room, I'd locked it up since Ellen passed, never stepping foot inside again. A surge of anger washed over me, and I rushed into the house, Smokey following, his claws clicking on the wooden floor. I ran up the stairs, flashlight gripped tight. The room was empty, the bed still dusty, the curtains still. But Smokey hissed, lunging at the corner of the room, his claws scratching wildly at the floorboards. I shined the light there and shuddered, a dark red stain, like dried blood, spreading out from under the old rug, though I swore it wasn't there before. Anger now turned into real fear. Something wasn't right here. The next night, I woke with a start to Smokey growling, his fur standing on end, his yellow eyes glowing in the dark. He wasn't the type to get riled up for no reason, only when something was truly wrong. I sat up, my breath quickening, listening. Creaking sounds came from upstairs, like someone pacing in the locked room. I thought about grabbing the revolver from the downstairs closet, but my feet felt rooted to the bed. Finally, I mustered my courage, grabbed the flashlight, and headed up the stairs, Smokey close behind, his ears flattened. The old bedroom door was still locked, but when I placed my hand on the knob, an icy chill seeped through my fingers. I opened the door, the flashlight beam sweeping across the room. Nothing had changed, the bed was dusty, Ellen's picture on the dresser was still tilted like I left it. But the dark red stain was gone, like it never existed. I told myself I was imagining things, but that night, while doing the dishes, the kitchen light turned on by itself. I knew I'd turned it off before bed. The click of the switch echoed in the silence like a warning. I stood frozen, my wet hand gripping the butter knife, my heart pounding. There was no doubt, someone, or something, was in my house. I called the police, my voice shaking as I explained I thought there was an intruder. They came, searched from the basement to the attic, but found nothing but an empty house. The sheriff patted my shoulder. Could be old wiring, Mr. Jacob. Call us if you need anything. But their eyes said it all, they thought I was losing it. The fourth night was the peak of the nightmare. I couldn't sleep, my mind racing with the sounds and shadows. I decided to check the old bedroom again, hoping facing it head-on would ease my fear. When I opened the door, I froze. The floor was covered in scraps of paper, Ellen's journal, the pages I'd boxed up after she passed, now scattered everywhere, the edges charred like they'd been half-burned. I bent down to pick up a page, and my heart stopped. Ellen's handwriting, scrawled with the words, "It's getting closer every night." I'd never seen those words before. Then I heard a thump behind me. I turned, and a figure stood in the doorway, a short woman, wearing a tattered white dress, her long black hair covering her face. Not Ellen, she was taller, and the way this figure stood, it was off, like her joints were bent backward. I yelled, lunging forward, but she retreated with impossible speed, her form drifting down the stairs like smoke. I chased after her, my feet slipping on the wooden steps, but by the time I reached the front door, she'd vanished into the thick fog outside the ridge. Smokey growled beside me, his fur bristling. I searched the property all night, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, but found no trace, no footprints, no sound, just the wind whistling through the pines. Weeks later, I lived on edge. Every creak in the house made me jump, my hand never far from the revolver I kept by my bed. One night, sitting in the living room, I saw her again, standing outside, under the dim moonlight, staring right at me through the window. Her white eyes glowed in the dark, unblinking, emotionless. I grabbed my gun, rushed outside, Smokey barking wildly. She stood there, still as a statue. I fired 2 warning shots into the air, the sound echoing through the hills. Suddenly, she tilted her head, let out a sharp screech like metal scraping against rock, then vanished into the fog, leaving a smoldering red stain on the grass. I stood there, my breath ragged, waiting. She didn't return, but I knew that didn't mean it was over. The next night, I found another journal page under the armchair. Don't let it in, Jacob, Ellen's handwriting, but the paper was soaked with the stench of rotten earth. I called my brother, begged him to come stay, even though I'd sworn to face everything myself. Smokey was the only light keeping me sane in the darkness. I don't know what she, or it, is, but every night, I hear a soft thumping from upstairs, a reminder that the nightmare is far from over. I'm Riley Carter, a night shift warehouse worker in the outskirts of Spokane, Washington. My job is to inventory goods in a cold, dusty warehouse, usually ending when it's still pitch black outside. Not the career I dreamed of as a kid, but it pays the rent and helps me temporarily forget the pain of losing my sister, Ellie, in a hiking accident at Riverside State Park 2 years ago. Her body was never found, just her tattered backpack on the riverbank. The work hours are brutal. I usually get home at dawn, either collapsing into bed exhausted or wired from too much coffee. One night in March 2020, I left the warehouse at 1 a.m. and drove my Ford Ranger home. The night was bone-chilling, thick fog blanketed the dry fields along State Route 27, and the wind whistled through the car windows like whispers. I downed 2 Monster energy drinks to keep my eyes open, my stomach was growling, and my mind was too restless to sleep. There was a small 24/7 gas station near my place, about a 12-minute drive away. I'm not one for late-night snacks, but the craving for a Snickers bar and some hot fried chicken was gnawing at me, and it was the most convenient option at this hour. I pulled into the gas station around 1:30 a.m. A few trucks were scattered outside, their neon lights flickering weakly in the fog. I stepped inside, the door's bell jingling dryly. It was empty except for a young guy behind the counter, pale-faced with dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. I ordered 2 pieces of chicken and a Snickers, then idly looked around while I waited. Suddenly, a sharp clink rang out from behind the counter, like metal hitting the floor. The guy jumped, bent down to pick something up, his hand fumbling. I asked, "Everything okay?" He looked up, his voice a whisper, "Yeah, just a screwdriver." But his eyes darted away, glancing out the window. I followed his gaze, an old Pontiac GTO, faded silver paint with patches of rust, parked in the dark corner near the dumpster. The car's windows were blacked out, but through the haze, I could make out a figure inside, their head tilted at an odd angle, like it was broken. The gas station didn't have a separate rest area, and employees parked in the back, so this car didn't belong here. The guy handed me my food, his voice strained, "Don't look at it too long. It's been parked there for days, nobody going in or out." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I grabbed my bag, rushed to my truck, my heart pounding faster than usual. As I opened the door, I heard a faint scraping sound from the Pontiac, like fingernails on glass. I didn't dare look back. I wasn't ready to go home yet, the caffeine still making my heart race. I drove along State Route 27, trying to find a quiet place to eat and breathe some fresh air, hoping to shake off the unease from the gas station. Spokane has plenty of wilderness areas, but I didn't want to go too far out at this hour. I thought of Riverside State Park, about 20 minutes from my place, a vast area with dense pine forests, the Spokane River flowing through it, and a scenic overlook on a hill with a view of the water shimmering under the moonlight. During the day, it's a popular picnic spot, attracting families and hikers, but after 8 p.m., the main gate is locked, leaving only a side entrance through a dirt lot near the river road. In college, I used to go there alone to think, sitting on a wooden bench listening to the river, forgetting about bad days. But after Ellie disappeared there, I avoided it like a curse. Tonight, I don't know why I wanted to go back. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I was just too tired to think anymore. I parked in the lot, turned off the headlights, and opened my food bag. The area was empty, except for the wind howling through the pines and the river lapping gently against the rocks. I bit into my chicken, trying to focus on the spicy flavor, but my mind kept drifting back to the Pontiac at the gas station. Then headlights flashed in the distance, cutting through the thick fog. Another car pulled into the lot, the same silver Pontiac GTO from the gas station. My heart sank. I was sure it was the same one, the faded paint, the distinct old-school shape. They parked about 30 yards away, their headlights still on, shining straight into the woods, but there was no engine noise or any other sound. I rolled down my window a little, trying to listen, and a faint scraping sound echoed, like metal on glass, followed by small tapping sounds, like drops of water hitting the ground. I strained my eyes through the fog. The driver's side window of the Pontiac slowly rolled down, revealing a bony hand, long gnarled fingers scratching lightly on the door frame, black blood dripping from the fingertips, soaking into the ground below. Fear surged through me. Were they following me? This couldn't be a coincidence. I gripped my phone, my hand shaking, wondering if I should call the cops right then. But I didn't want to be alone here any longer. I texted my best friend, Leah, a night shift nurse at the nearby hospital. Luckily, she'd just finished her shift and replied right away, "I'm near State Route 27, what's up with that car? I'm coming, don't stay alone." Her text was filled with worry, making me even more uneasy. While I waited, I kept my eyes glued to the Pontiac. The headlights were still on, but the bony hand had disappeared, leaving a dark blood streak on the car door. Leah arrived 15 minutes later, driving her familiar green Kia Soul, jumping out with a panicked look. "Riley, get in my car now, this place isn't safe," she yelled, her voice trembling. But I shook my head, grabbing her hand. "I need to know what's going on. Come with me to the overlook, just for a minute." Leah looked at me like I was crazy, but finally nodded, though her eyes were filled with fear. We walked along the dirt path to the overlook, the fog clinging to our faces, cold as death. Before the lot disappeared from view, I glanced back. All 4 doors of the Pontiac popped open at once. 4 figures stepped out, tall and gaunt, wearing long dark coats, standing still in the fog. They didn't say anything, just turned their heads in unison towards us, their white eyes glowing like flashlights in the dark. Leah gripped my hand tightly, whispering, "Riley, run, I'm not kidding. I saw that car near the hospital last week, parked in the lot all night, blood dripping from the door." But I stood frozen, staring at them, a strange feeling rising, like I'd seen those eyes somewhere before, a long time ago. We rushed to the overlook, sitting on an old wooden bench near the riverbank, listening to the steady flow of the water. Leah shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. "I don't know why you wanted to come up here, Riley. After what happened to Ellie, I thought you'd never come back." I didn't answer, just bit into my Snickers, trying to stay calm. But then a crunching sound on the dry ground echoed from the path, slow and steady, like dragging footsteps. Leah squeezed my hand. "Do you hear that?" I nodded, my throat dry. 3 figures emerged from the fog, walking silently, not smiling or speaking, just heavy breaths escaping their mouths. The one in the lead, long matted hair caked with dried blood, a rusty lip ring glinting under the moonlight, gave a forced smile. "Enjoying the view, folks?" Leah screamed, jumping up. "Who are you? Stay away." I pulled her back down, but my heart was pounding. The guy, His voice hoarse like wind through rocks, sneered, "Late at night, you shouldn't be out here alone." I was tense, blurting out, "What were you doing at the gas station earlier?" The long-haired guy's smile vanished, his eyes darkening into deep sockets, the other two tilting their heads to look at us, their white pupils twitching. The air grew heavy and suffocating, and a sharp screech echoed from the riverbank, like metal scraping on rock, followed by a small splash, like something falling into the water. We turned, a fourth figure lunged from the shadows near the river, unusually tall, holding a small handsaw, the blade stained with dried blood. He wasn't wearing a coat, revealing a gray face, white eyes glowing like headlights, cracked skin like dry earth, his mouth wide open, black drool dripping down his chin. He tilted his head, his neck bones cracking, then charged, his feet dragging on the ground, leaving a trail of dark blood. Leah screamed, "Run, Riley, run now." I grabbed Leah's hand, rushing down the dirt path, the fog clinging to our faces, cold as the breath of the dead. Leah slipped on the damp ground, falling, her knee hitting a rock, blood seeping from the gash. She groaned, "I can't run." I pulled her up, my heart pounding, yelling, "Come on, Leah." The sound of the saw scraping on the rocks echoed behind us, growing closer every second, accompanied by the guttural growls of the other three. I glanced back, the saw-wielding figure was leaping through the bushes, the saw swinging, the other three brandishing knives, their white eyes glowing in the fog. A loud crash rang out, a rock rolled down the hill, hitting Leah's foot, sending her sprawling, blood staining the ground, her voice a cry of pain, "Riley, don't leave me." I knelt down, pulling her over the rock, my hand sticky with the warm blood from her wound. The footsteps didn't stop, the saw screeching like it was tearing through the air. I yelled, "Get up, Leah, they're coming." Leah limped, leaning on me, we rushed towards the lot. The saw-wielding figure was only a few feet away now, I could hear the sound of his black drool hitting the ground with a wet smack, the stench of decay filling my nostrils. We reached the lot, Leah jumped into my truck, her blood staining the seat. I slammed on the gas, the tires skidding on the damp ground before gripping, we sped out of the park. Through the rearview mirror, I saw the Pontiac start up, the headlights chasing us through the fog, the sound of the saw still echoing from the distance. Leah was crying, "My leg hurts so bad, Riley." "What are they?" I didn't answer, just gripped her hand, trying to stay calm. I didn't dare go home, afraid they knew where I lived. I called Leah once she was in her own car, "Drive to your neighborhood, I'll follow. Don't stop." We sped towards Leah's crowded neighborhood, 20 minutes away, my heart still pounding. Once there, I bandaged Leah's leg in her house, she was shaking, "I've never been so scared." That guy with the saw, his face wasn't human. I checked the photos Leah had secretly taken at the overlook, the long-haired guy and the other two were blurry in the fog, but the saw-wielding figure wasn't in the photos, even though we both clearly saw him. Leah whispered, "I saw him, how is he not in the photos?" "Something's wrong, Riley." The next morning, I convinced Leah to go back to the gas station to ask questions, even though she protested, "I don't want to go near that place again." But I needed answers. We met Derek, the guy from last night, he looked even more haggard now. I showed him the photos, told him about what happened at Riverside. Derek went pale, his voice trembling, "That's Gabe, he used to work here. He was fired 2 years ago for attacking a customer with a handsaw on the night shift. He disappeared after the cops found blood near the Spokane River, a lot of blood, but it wasn't clear whose. People said he drowned, but last week, I saw him standing outside, holding a saw, muttering, 'Give her back.'" Derek glanced out the window, whispering, "If he was at Riverside last night, maybe he wasn't looking for you. There's something in the river, Riley. I've heard customers say they've seen figures in the water near there, but nobody dares go close." Leah and I left the gas station in silence, our minds reeling. 3 days later, I was driving home from work, and I saw the silver Pontiac parked on the side of State Route 27, headlights off, windows blacked out. A dark blood trail dripped from the driver's seat onto the ground, soaking into the dry grass. I sped past, my heart pounding, not daring to stop. Back home, I locked the doors, checked the photos Leah had sent again. In the corner of one photo, among the pine trees, was a blurry figure, not the saw-wielding figure, but a bony hand, gripping the saw, the skin peeling like a corpse, the long gnarled fingers stained with dried blood. I zoomed in on the photo and noticed a horrifying detail. On the hand was an S-shaped scar, exactly like the scar on Ellie's wrist, a mark from when she fell while climbing with me. But what made my blood run cold was the tiny inscription etched on the saw blade in the photo, "Ellie calls you," the handwriting shaky, like hers. That night, I heard a tapping sound at the window, soft and steady, like someone tapping with a saw blade. I pulled back the curtain, and Gabe stood outside, his white eyes glowing under the moonlight, the saw dripping with black blood in his hand. He tilted his head, his neck bones cracking, and from his mouth, Ellie's voice echoed, weak but clear, "Riley, save me. I'm in the river." Another hand, Ellie's hand, pale and blue, the nails broken, reached out from his chest, tearing through his coat, black blood splattering on the window. I screamed, backing away, and a crash, the window shattered, glass shards flying across the floor, black blood flowing into the house like water. I rushed out the back door, jumped into my truck, but when I looked back, the yard was empty, only the saw stuck in the ground, the blade stained red, the inscription, "I'm in the river, find me, Riley." The sound of flowing water echoed from the distance, even though my house was miles from Riverside. I haven't dared go back to the gas station or Riverside since. Every night, I hear a faint scraping sound outside my door, like a saw blade on wood. Leah doesn't talk to me anymore, says she dreams of Ellie standing in the water, calling both our names. I don't know what Gabe is, or what's using him, but I know one thing, Ellie isn't dead, and she's waiting for me in that river. I grew up in San Marcos, Texas, a small town about 30 miles from Austin, where the summers are so hot you just want to hide in the shade all day. Back in 2015, when I was a senior in high school, my friends and I used to find abandoned places to kill time, a pastime I later learned many people enjoyed. In New Braunfels, about a 20-minute drive from my place, there was an old textile mill called Mission Valley Mills at 555 Porter Street, located on the banks of the Guadalupe River. The mill had been out of operation since 2005, leaving behind crumbling brick walls and thousands of rolls of decaying fabric inside. We called it the Dead Mill, a kind of silly name, but it fit the eerie vibe of the place. One August night, it was sweltering even though it was almost midnight. My 5 friends, Ethan, Mia, Carlos, Liam, and Harper, and I decided to break into Mission Valley to chill. We brought some sodas and a big flashlight, planning to turn the place into our secret escape from the heat. To get in, we had to climb over a towering chain-link fence, tearing our clothes in the process. The main door was locked with a rusty chain, but there was a broken window in the back, just big enough for us to squeeze through. Inside, the floor was covered in dust and broken glass, with big holes revealing the dirt below. An old concrete staircase led down to the basement, our usual hangout because it was cool and secluded. The mill's basement had 3 rooms. The biggest room had a few broken tables and a pile of old fabric rolls, where we'd gather. Carlos, the prankster of the group, started telling ghost stories after a few sips of soda, making me shush him because the echo in the basement made every sound 10 times louder. We laughed and joked, enjoying the feeling of freedom in this forbidden space. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the only room with a door in the basement. We all froze, looking at each other in shock. I thought it was just a roll of fabric falling, but Mia, Ethan, and Carlos didn't wait for an explanation. They screamed and ran up the stairs, leaving me, Liam, and Harper behind. We weren't the type to run away easily, even though my heart was pounding like a drum. After a few tense minutes of silence, Liam, Harper, and I decided to investigate. We crept towards the door, Liam's hand shaking as he pushed it open. Inside was a small, pitch-black room, with only an old cabinet against the wall. The mirror on the cabinet was cracked, covered in dark red streaks, shiny as if they'd just been painted on. I stepped closer, smelling the metallic tang of blood mixed with the musty odor. On top of the cabinet, a small metal box lay crookedly. Inside was an old photo, a middle-aged man in a worker's uniform, his sunken eyes staring straight at us. Harper whispered, "He looks like he's trying to say something." Before we could react, another sound echoed from the big room, the scraping of metal on the floor, followed by a wheezing sound like someone struggling to breathe. We turned to see a figure standing in the middle of the room, tall and gaunt, wearing a tattered worker's jacket, holding a long metal rod, probably part of an old weaving machine. Harper's flashlight beam hit his face, white eyes glowing, his mouth open revealing yellowed teeth, his breath making a hissing sound like wind through a chimney. He tilted his head, his neck bones cracking, then stepped forward, dragging the metal rod on the floor. Liam screamed, dropping the flashlight, and I pulled Harper, running like hell up the stairs. The sound of metal scraping on the floor followed us, each heavy step pounding in my head. We climbed over the fence faster than ever, our hands and legs scratched by the barbed wire. Standing on Porter Street, I glanced back. The figure had vanished, but a bony hand was reaching out of the broken window, long fingernails scratching the glass, leaving red streaks. Nobody said a word on the way home, just the sound of our ragged breaths and pounding hearts. After that night, we swore never to go back. Years later, in 2020, I heard Mission Valley Mills had been bought and renovated into the River Mill complex. I drove by, seeing workers tearing down the old walls. But that night still haunted me, especially the photo of the man and the white eyes. I did some research online and found an accident from 1998. A worker named Roland Vela had his hand crushed in a weaving machine during the night shift, lost too much blood and died right there in the basement. People said his ghost still roamed the mill, seeking revenge on trespassers for the negligence of the management back then. I don't know what we saw, but every time I hear metal scraping somewhere in the wind, I still jump, wondering if Roland is still waiting for someone in the dark basement of Mission Valley Mills. Some nightmares fade when you wake up, but some stay with you forever. Until next time, sleep tight, if you can. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Nightmare Vault for more chilling tales.